right, welcome peeps back again to another episode of our day shifts. So this is part of our Save Our Shifts campaign, which is sponsored by the USBG. Because you haven't heard of it, this has been our series of day shifts where we talk to some really badass bartenders in town about different topics and just try to, educate the people about what's going on. If you'd be interested in doing this, visit our website, www.saveourshifts.com. Today we are sponsored by Hard Shore Gin, located right on Washington Avenue in Portland. Their tasting room is now open if you haven't been yet. Maybe not today because they're not open and it's also raining out, but they are open from 2 to 8 Thursday through Sunday. And Jaren has been making some real awesome tonics. And we're already joined by my cat Yoda. It's 2 minutes in. I'm so impressed. We're also sponsored by St. Elder today, which is going to be artisanal liqueurs coming out of Somerville, Massachusetts. So they have their OG, their elderflower liqueur. They've also now got blood orange and a grapefruit, which are both really exciting. I've combined all these three into a super slutty floral highball with a little bit of Hard Shore and then some St. Elder and blood orange. Because our topic today is low ABV. My panelists today, we got lovely Isaac coming to us from Cocktail Mary. Hayley coming to us from Hut and Alpine Club.
Heyo. Ryan
from Sagamore Hill. And Austin from Black Cow and also Bayside Roll. Sure, that patio is not open today either. But yeah, our topic today is going to be things that are low ABV, potentially no ABV, sort of this new trend that we've seen and that I think will probably continue on, especially because it's the summertime, drinking sort of like low ABV stuff. So Isaac, what would you define as low ABV? Can you just give me a brief definition?
I mean, yeah, I kind of think of like beer ABV as low, like somewhere between like, I think below 10% is what I consider to be low ABV. Because once you get above 10, you're hitting like wine territory. And everybody knows if you chug a glass of wine, it kind of hits you hard. So that's kind of what my thinking is, like less than wine in the beer area, but probably above like 2% for sure.
2%. And for anyone who doesn't know, ABV does refer to as alcohol by volume. So that is how much alcohol is in there by there. I always think of things that are like quote unquote sessionable, which is like 5% or below in beer, which is crazy. But I feel like this trend has been going on for like a little bit. So Hayley, do you like remember seeing like, been like, oh weird, there's a lot of people like drinking spritz outside of maybe brunch. Do you remember like a time where you're like, oh my God, when did that?
I mean, well, personally, I've always been a fan of spritzes and Aperol and Campari in general. And so I guess, yeah, like once patios started popping up and becoming like, oh, these people have cool patios. I'm specifically referring to like some spots in Boston. It was like pictures of spritz were coming out, which were really, really cool. And I know in town, Tipo does a picture of spritz, which I have definitely gone for and shown up and been like, hi, I'm here for the spritz. But yeah, I mean, I would say probably the past 5 years, a lot of spritzing.
For sure. I feel like, Austin, do you see people asking for this outside of like your normal, I don't know, I feel like low ABV used to be just stuck to day drinking and like going to the beach. Have you seen it at late night too? Or is it just people who are really fucked up already and you're like, here's a Miller High Life?
I mean, there's always the traditional soda water with maybe just a little ring of vodka around the top, for those people. But not that that's my choice mocktail. But yeah, no, there are absolutely people who I've served, after work hours, after happy hour time, where they'll come in and they want something that will be good for the bar hops, that they aren't absolutely trashed by the end of the night.
For sure. There's usually like a switch where I'm like, I'm either drinking low ABV because I got to wake up and go to spin class in the morning, or it's because I'm already wasted. It's going to be like one of those two things and like nothing in between at all. So Ryan, I know that y'all have always had sort of like your low ABV or like no ABV section on your menu. What inspired you to always have that since your opening?
Honestly, it's kind of expected in the industry now. We're only 2 years old, so it was already a trend by that point. And it's about being hospitable to everyone and everyone's taste. there's always going to be someone on some weekend night that is either the DD, they're not drinking for whatever reason, medically or whatever. So you want to give them something. So it's always been a part of what we do.
For sure. I love that, having those options is good hospitality. It's kind of how I always think about it. Like, just because you don't want to drink, a Negroni doesn't mean that I'm still not going to take care of you in the same way and just sort of like be there for guests. So let's sort of deep dive into making and creating like low alcohol drinks and stuff. I've seen these trends of, it's not here, but on menus, there's been bars that will put the alcohol by volume next to the drinks. To me, this almost serves as like your calorie count when you're at Starbucks or wherever. So you're like, pick your poison. You know that Frappuccino is 1,000 calories, but you're going to do it anyways. And I know, Austin, you guys at Black Cow were doing this for your to-go cocktails. Could you talk a little bit about how you figured that out and everything, and if you think that's valuable to people?
So originally we were listing on the tags. We aren't anymore, just because the labels can only be so large for our to-go containers. But of course, by state mandate, we do have to have the ABV of each spirit listed. And at first we were putting in, I should say it's an estimate, because you always have to consider density of your liquids, et cetera, et cetera. But we would do like a dry build ABV where we would take I put together like a little example. Like if I wanted to make like an elderflower G&T, what I would do is I would take the volume and the ABV, and I would multiply my volume by my ABV supplied on the bottle, and that would give me the amount of, or the volume of alcohol from the volume that I use in spirit. And then I can, of course, add those together if I have multiple spirits on there and divide that by my total volume. And that will give you a fairly accurate estimation, especially for a dry build of what your ABV is. And if you're able to take into consideration how much dilution from your ice afterwards, you can get really, really close. But I've really enjoyed seeing bars that will list that alongside the cocktail. It's good practice.
It's always good to let the people know what they're getting into, right? So just to kind of throw back on that a little bit for maybe people who don't know. So by dry, you're referring to without any ice or anything, right? So just like straight up, no mixing.
Correct. So like the dry bill would be before you add ice or any dilution of any kind other than your other, possible non-alcoholic mixers. So just your volume before shaking, stirring, whip shaking, whatever.
So if you were looking at like a menu and stuff, like probably don't have like numbers of this written down, but what would be, maybe like an elderflower highball with St. Elder alcohol by volume versus your old fashioned? What would be the sort of difference in that?
Well, of course, you would consider like how much, because everyone will have a different ratio for a highball, how much soda water they add. And for like, say, like a gin and tonic, the standard that I've always seen, and of course, most people just eyeball, they'll just fill the glass to its top wash point. But people will do like a 3-to-1 ratio. So you can definitely take it makes the math a lot easier, I should say, especially if you consider like, oh, this has got 2 ounces of gin in it, and it's a 2-to-3 ratio. So then you can break that down to it makes your division a lot easier.
So I feel like, I don't know, I read this once that like an old fashioned is probably hitting you at like pretty close to like the alcohol by volume that's on the bottle, right? And then maybe something like a highball is probably like half or something like that. So we're talking like, I don't know, 15, 16 versus 40, right?
It could be the difference between like 37% to say maybe 12 to 14%.
Yeah, that's a huge difference. That's totally huge. I think it's like always valuable. I just see that and I'm just like, sounds interesting. So Hayley, I know you're the queen of spritzes.
I am.
Queen of the spritz. So,
Yes.
So spritz is definitely one of those classically known like lower alcohol by volume cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
Could you talk to me a little bit about like what defines a spritz? What is it?
Sure. Yeah, well, so spritzing has been around forever, because yeah, drinking was always kind of mandatory in like it. Let me. I have a visual.
Oh, I love visual aids. It's like going to the circus. Amazing.
Board here. If anybody needs close-ups, I'll send pictures later. But spritzing has been around for 2,000 years.
Ooh,
Because
it's like
drinking was always mandatory, but like getting drunk wasn't frowned upon. So people started watering down their cocktails, and by watering it down is kind of how we got, the spagliato. Everybody loved Negronis in Italy. Everybody loved that, but you can't do it all the time. I'm actually drinking a riff on a spagliato with St. Elder blood orange, Campari, and sparkling wine. It's delicious and can be a longevity cocktail. But yeah, no, it's been around forever, and we kind of really didn't see it in the States until honestly the white wine spritz kind of brought it over, like unintentionally.
Ooh. Man, I haven't made one of those in a minute.
So like the 80s game of like no pain, no gain, that whole shtick is kind of like where we got the white wine spritzer, but it unintentionally brought kind of a focus onto that aperitif world, and bartenders and people in the industry paying attention were like, oh, this is actually really, really great. What can I do with it?
Yeah. So there's all different types of spritzes. Obviously, like the most well-known one is like an Aperol spritz. But what's something that, what do you, if you're going to make like a spritz at Hunt, what would something look like that? Do you put any booze? Do you put just like a liqueur, maybe an Amaro? Yeah,
so I personally tend to lean towards Amaros for sure, Amari. It kind of depends on the season. Like I've done a really fun blueberry spritz that was like Pasubio and St. Elder with a blueberry syrup, which was delicious. And that was really fun, like springtime cocktail. If we're going, it kind of evolves within the season. And so for fall, I like to mess around with Cardamaro and, those kind of spices with like ginger, still keep it light, keep it refreshing, keep it crushable, drinkable. But I think spritz has a lot of wiggle room within that category and can really, really change depending on your palate.
Yeah, for sure. I feel when we're talking about the spritz category, it's usually something plus sparkling wine, right? So something in that world that, it's a little bit more than just drinking sparkling wine, but definitely less percentage than drinking a full cocktail. Isaac, what are some of your favorite different sparklers to use in different spritzes?
I mean, we just at Cocktail Mary, we just pretty much only use this Anton Oleg Brut Rosé. It's a German Pinot Noir based, and I'm pretty sure it's Method Champenoise. So it's it just has these really beautiful bubbles, and you can open up a bottle of that, pour up a couple glasses off, and 3 days later it's still fully sparkling. So it's actually relatively expensive for a sparkling modifier in terms of how you work on pricing, but in terms of its longevity, there's very little waste. Yeah. And it's also a beautiful pour on its own. So that's kind of where my calculus went into that. And it's actually been great because we sell a fair amount by the glass as well. So I kind of try to stick to one, from a business perspective. So we're not opening a bunch of different bubbles. But I also do find that sometimes if you're using sparkling wine as a modifier in a spritz, you do run the danger of it actually not being that low ABV when you start putting spirits in. So like, you can go both ways with that essentially. So there is that to keep in mind, that you can trick yourself into thinking you're having this like low ABV sessionable cocktail, but really you're adding like full strength spirit to a 12, 13% ABV product already. So you're actually, instead of using water to dilute, you're using alcohol to dilute. There, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel like that's definitely the trick with sometimes, like, I want to say like the mimosa brunch is like you think that you are actually drinking like less alcohol by volume, but I don't know. I always put a little bit of triple sec in mine. So if you're thinking about that, you're like, oh, I actually just added to that glass of wine and I chugged like 3 of them in 3 minutes. So is it still the same amount of thing there? Brian, is there anything that you like to use over at your place for like making spritzes, anything like that?
Actually, last summer, and I apologize because I had to go into the archives and get the cheat sheet.
Ooh.
These are recipes from over a year ago that we used for only a couple of weeks. I clearly don't remember them. But we started out with just one night during wine week last June, and we did all kombucha spritzes.
Ooh.
And it was so wildly popular, we continued it for the entire month of June, just once a week. But one of my favorites was the ginger limoncello spritz. That uses a ginger kombucha, a house-made limoncello. For the spritz events, we had 2 different Proseccos. We had a sweet and a dry, and then seltzer and a lemon twist. That was a nice sweet and spicy spritz, but it was still very low ABV.
That's super dope. That sounds awesome. You forget that sometimes the things that are sparkling are really like kombucha's got a little bit on there. It can be used for it. So just a little quick into for anyone who's just joining us. This is our day shift sponsored by the USBG from Save Our Shifts campaign. Our sponsors today are Hardshore Gin and St. Elder. And I've got their blood orange liqueur here and also their OG elderflower one. Super delicious. And those come out of Massachusetts, and Hardshore is right on Washington Avenue. If you haven't been there yet, you should do the thing. And we're talking about low ABV things. And we're just on Hayley's favorite topic of spritzes and sort of talking about the different types of like different wines and things they do. So Austin, have you ever done anything with like any like biodynamic ones or pet nats or anything like that with some spritzes?
Not too much, really. I mean, I also worked at before I worked at Black Cow, I worked at a bar that focused very much on mocktails and low ABV drinks, but we didn't really do too many spritzers, which was I always found very surprising because with the summer would come all our tourist crowds, and that's usually what they want. But I always find that there's also no scarcity to it around town, especially here, and in any other place you go, there's no scarcity of other places that will have offerings like that. And it's, as Ryan mentioned earlier, it's a great thing to have because it's the hospitable choice. You can have all these fun different options for people.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm also classically known as just like ordering an Aperol Spritz at like 10 p.m. also. So a little bit more on like the numbers sort of game real quick. Like Isaac, have you seen like if you're running your bar program and all, like does it make sense for you to serve low ABV drinks? How is that cost-wise comparative to a normal cocktail?
That it all kind of depends. Like we had 2 non-alcoholic cocktails on our list before COVID that were both made with Seedlip, which is a non-alcoholic spirit, and that's great. But it's expensive. It's like they're like $40 a bottle, which is the high end of what you're typically going to have. So I found people would order them, but they're paying $10 to $12 for a non-alcoholic cocktail. So it's definitely kind of a niche market. But I personally don't drink alcohol anymore. So for me, I've found going into lots of bars that didn't have non-alcoholic cocktails just created a really kind of uncomfortable situation as a customer where I'd be ordering a soda water and the server or the bartender would typically get annoyed because it's $1. Where I actually want to spend money. I want to support the business and I want to support the people that are working there, but I'm often not given the opportunity. So that's kind of why personally I put them on there. And I found they actually sold relatively well, but I think part of it also is a matter of exposure in terms of letting people know that there are going to be options like that there for them, and then they're not going to be made uncomfortable to not order alcohol.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have a few friends who are, don't imbibe anymore, and I think that they would be happy paying for that. Do you think that there's really a market for a bar that would be strictly like dry bar, quote unquote, here in Portland, or something that just focus on that and low ABV stuff?
I don't think in a town like Portland, I just don't think that there are enough people. I think there are places in like New York City and LA that are kind of doing that as a business model. I don't know if there are any brick and mortar yet, but there are pop-ups and they're doing well. But I feel like there's maybe just literally not enough critical mass of people to make that completely work. But I also did want to say too that one of the things the other factor is not people that don't eat alcohol, but also medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. You know, if someone's going to eat a gummy bear, I don't want to serve them 4 or 5 alcoholic cocktails. And I don't think that they want to drink that, but they're probably going to hang out for a couple hours. So giving them the ability to continue to, again, be a patron and enjoy themselves. And it's also a really great way to kind of trick people who are too drunk into thinking they're getting. It's a good way to not say no, to be like, we have these cocktails that you can order, as opposed to saying, no, you can't order anything, you know? So in terms of a way to kind of avoid conflict, it's a really, really helpful and effective tool, I think, for staff members.
Yeah, for sure. We could definitely do a whole nother section on talking about like CBD and cocktails and like
the
whole thing. But we'll save that for another time. I wanted to talk more about highballs because I feel as though that's another category that is typically very known to be sort of like low ABV and definitely trending in like the summertime, especially now. Austin, how would you define a highball?
By the traditional sense, we've all had like a whiskey skin or some sort of sparkling variation of that. I'd say it's like having a cold or a, wow. I was thinking about a hot toddy for a moment. No,
Ooh, nice.
It's like having a lengthened out old fashioned in many ways. Like the first time I ever had like a whiskey skin, somebody, instead of making it like a hot toddy, made it for me like a Scotch highball, and I didn't realize that was like the proper format for a highball. But the cool part about having so many liqueurs at your disposal is that you don't have to use one of your noble spirits to make a great low ABV highball, and you'll get a lot of great variations from flavors using different aperitifs and amari and a selection of bitters. Even there's so much cool stuff you can do. But just keeping with that kind of lengthened old-fashioned format where you've got a 3-to-1 ratio of your alcohol to something bubbly that's generally like it's soda water, club soda, tonic.
Do you have a favorite amari that you like as a highball the most? If you say Chinar 70, I know it's because you're a market.
I am very partial to a Chinar and soda. Yes, it was a go-to breakfast choice for many years.
So Hayley, for me, like I know that when I think about carbonation, there's so many different options for things that you can use like to like carbonate, right? Like I got some like Topo Chico, which would like literally like rip your face off. So how important is it when you're making a highball that it's cold as possible and that you have all the bubbles that you need?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think knowing your bubbles is important when concocting a beverage. Has your soda water been open for 2 hours? Is it looking a little flat? I'm not going to put it in there. I don't want, especially in a highball situation where that's such a pinnacle point of the drink. I'm not going to put anything that's even looking a little flat. At Hunt and Alpine, we use like individual polar bottles just so that we can go through them pretty fast and don't have to, like the little chubby ones. So we don't have to keep things open for too long to make sure everything is fresh. You got those big, beautiful bubbles and it's what you want.
Yeah, for sure. Isaac, is there a certain one, like a favorite for you, like soda water or just like mixer it to use with highballs?
I personally drink a lot of La Crux, or I'm not sure how you're supposed to say it, but that's my
tomato, it's fine.
Their peach pear is like my favorite I could drink it all day long. But I tend to do forced carbonation for my spritzers. So I use just like filtered tap water, and then add it into an old plastic carbonated bottle with a carbonator top at about 60 psi in a CO2 container. And that way you have a little bit more control over the exact ratios. And then you're not, again, it's a great way to not waste product. But I also do really like what Hayley was talking about, those little bottles, because I always found it was a good trick as a bartender to, if you knew you weren't going to be making another spritzer soon, you just kind of chug the rest of that soda water, and it helps keep you hydrated through your shift.
Always.
Right? Like little tricks to keep you kind of like healthy and hydrated and present during a long shift like that. So I don't know, in terms of soda, like a particular soda water for a highball, I would stick with like club soda. I wouldn't want to use like a Pellegrino or like, a natural sparkling one, because you just have all these other minerals and kind of behaviors and some brininess and stuff, so that it can kind of change the flavor profile. So I find for me with like a highball, what I'm trying to do is draw out the flavors of the spirit. So I want the water to be as like, as sort of neutral as possible.
Yeah, just like the carrier, the
party.
party.
Yeah. It's kind of like the more you pull the ABV down in a spirit, the more of those flavor profiles that are listed on the bottle will come through. And I think that's kind of the benefit you have from a spritzer, other than it being low ABV as well, that it's hydrating as well as giving you a little bit of a buzz.
Yeah, I remember like listening to a podcast and he was talking about, I usually drink a highball and I feel like I need to slow down a little bit. You're like, all right.
Yeah. So my first spritzer the first time I ever started drinking spritzers was probably back in like early to mid aughts. And Fire Island, I call it Fire Island breakfast, and just Aperol and soda water. Because Aperol's already 6%, so you add soda water. All it really does is kind of bring the blood back to your cheeks if you're really hungover. Right? You're not gonna fall right back down the hill. It's just gonna kind of pull you up.
You know what I used to always do in the morning? Campari and OJ.
Yes.
Campari and OJ is one of my favorites. Just like a little bit. You just like drink it for breakfast. There's nothing wrong with a little.
Substitute a little Orangina, and then it's a spritz.
There you go.
Oh God, I love Orangina personally, but. Ryan, is there any favorite spritzes or highballs, that you might have had on the menu before in the past or presently?
Currently, we have, it's sort of a riff on a highball. It's kind of a hybrid between a sangria and a highball, and we call it an Italian sangria that we serve at brunch. So we infuse a dry white wine with basil and strawberry, and then serve that obviously over ice with seltzer, and it has this beautiful ombre effect to it. It's definitely low ABV. It's during brunch, it's usually our top seller, if not the second best seller. That right now is basically the only highball we're featuring, and that's Sundays only.
That sounds so delicious. I know that you just put a new one on at Black Cow, Austin. Can you tell me about that one?
Sorry, I said to unmute there. Which one?
The new highball you just put on at Black Cow.
We haven't put any highballs on recently, but it's been a big project of ours to try and get. Unfortunately, we were going to have like a big section of highballs for this summer, but the summer's not canceled yet. But we definitely had to turn everything around really quickly to have to-go cocktails ready to go very quickly.
Do you all use your like house-made sodas in like any highballs at all, or just keep that strictly for just sodas at Black Cow?
Oh, yes, we do sometimes. I've definitely had many people ask me, what spirit would go best with one of our house sodas, and looking to not affect our house-made sodas too much because they're already very rich syrups that we use. I'll usually defer to a liqueur or an Amaro just to keep the ABV down so that the ethanol doesn't rush with the carbonation and hit you in the face and keep you from wanting to drink it. But it'll also help let our house-made syrups shine a little bit more. And you can always find that people have a great wandering eye when it comes to picking out liqueurs that they really like that will complement the soda they want really well.
Yeah, it's always fun when you have like, I remember like whenever I was making like just like sodas, they're like, can I have that house-made soda but with vodka? You're like, sure, whatever floats your boat. So
Absolutely.
I think that sort of like the huge White Claw trend has been so big, and it feels like a giant movement of low ABV in general, right? Has anyone thought about like putting their own sort of like White Claw variation on a menu anywhere? This is open to whoever
No.
wants to talk about it.
We were tempted to at Bayside Bowl for a little bit. I mean, you kind of see people around town doing the vodka and your Truly or White Claw combo, where they'll have like Truly on tap and they'll throw a shot of spirit in there. We were jokingly, and it almost went on menu. I remember it's talked about for a bit. They were going to do a Truly combo, where you'd serve like a highball glass with your Truly, and then put a splash of green chartreuse or something like that on top.
That would be delicious.
I actually might get a keg of Truly like this week and put it on in that very way.
Lime Truly and
I'm
green
serious.
chartreuse.
Yeah.
The chartreuse.
Chartreuse, my God.
I need that. I know that Sylvie
Yeah.
Roy was watching, and she'd love that. Chartreuse. Let's do it, Sylvie. I think, like, I don't know. Austin, is White Claw actually your favorite low ABV drink?
You're putting me on the spot here. I mean, the raspberry White Claws are probably my favorite flavor out of all of those. They're a little too tempting whenever they're around.
That's true. Ryan, do you guys carry any sort of like sparkling seltzer or like hard seltzers or anything over there just because it's so popular?
Nope.
The people want it.
No, honestly, in my opinion, those things can stay in the supermarkets. I'm not going to serve them. They're great for tailgating, but it's not something I would carry personally. But I'm standing in front of an entire bowl of whiskey, so obviously that's not my thing.
Not maybe very super fitting of your bar for sure. Hayley, do you have a favorite White Claw?
I don't have a favorite White Claw. I mean, I'm partial to grapefruit flavored seltzies in general, so that's going to be what I go for. For me, hard seltzers are like my river beverage. Like if I'm going to get in a tube and float with my friends, I'm going to bring some Trulies. I'm going to bring some sort of hard seltzer. A friend, Lucy Henderson, actually did a whole presentation on seltzies that I have right here about, boozy seltzers and their pros and cons. Look at how happy she is on the river with her Trulies,
That's where they belong.
That's where they belong, and that's where they thrive.
Yep. So my river float would be I get these asparagus mason jars, and then like box wine from Trader Joe's, and my peach pear LaCroix, and then just half and half over ice.
Wow, that's an A+ combo.
That's like truly a Truly, right?
Yeah.
It's a Truly.
And truly, I love it.
Sparkling goon, I love it.
Yeah.
I am actually working on a cocktail that I think I'm going to try to force carbonate in like a 3-gallon keg, because I've got 9 drafts now, most of them devoted to wine and cocktails, and it's my sister's been working for me. It's just the 2 of us. She really is working with like watermelon and ginger, so I think we're going to do like watermelon as like the water essentially, some fresh ginger, and then we're playing around with the hard short barrel aged to kind of give it a little more richness, and so that's kind of actually like what the bar's version of a spritzer is going to be once we hit July tomorrow.
Yeah. I love that. That sounds really fun and round and delicious.
I think it'll be good.
Yeah.
That sounds super dope. So I feel like doing low ABV is a little bit easier in the summertime than wintertime. So Hayley, is there something that you like to do in the wintertime as more of a low ABV drink then, or even fall?
Yeah. I mean, so like I was saying before, like Cardamaro is kind of my favorite go-to for fall. I just think it kind of embodies the New England fall essence, you know. You can still sit on a patio, but you want to be a little bit more warmed up. For me in the winter, I kind of gravitate towards a Fernet spritz, which how I like to do them is Fernet, sweet vermouth, Prosecco, and then I like Pellegrino in those. I think that the brininess really adds something to the cocktail, and just hit it with some spanked mint and call it a day.
Ooh, spank that mint for you.
It's something I really miss doing.
I feel like for me, like especially if I'm transitioning from, summer, like fruit and everything to fall, I usually try to go for an Amari or a sherry, Isaac, have you played around with like different sorts of sherries or even like some Rancio before to use those low ABV?
Huge fan of sherry. I typically like to just drink it straight out of the fridge, like sip it like grandma. I think it's this great secret that like sherry is actually like typically 20 to 22% ABV. We all thought grandma was drinking sherry because it was like keeping her cool, but it was actually just getting her really fucked up, I think. You know what I mean? But yeah, I like those kinds of like dry, kind of funky, flory flavors, but I don't know that there's a huge market for that here quite yet. I think when people think spritz, they're thinking fruity, and refreshing, and so I guess it's just a matter of kind of seeing what people want to buy. But the winter spritz we did this past winter that flew was strawberry, imperial chai tea, and Lafroig, and people just couldn't get enough of it. But because Lafroig has like so much of that like peaty smokiness, was really, really, really just a tiny bit of Lafroig, and you could still really get the flavor. So part of the reason I took it off is I felt bad because there was so little actual whiskey in there. I felt like I was almost feeding people.
I saw that on one of your menus before. I was like, damn, that sounds so damn good.
It's
how about for Ryan? Is there any? Continue.
Part of the other problem I had is that the people that like Lafroig didn't like that cocktail. So there was a lot of communication that had to go into getting that cocktail in the right hands.
Yeah. How about for you, Ryan? Do y'all like to mess around with like different sorts of vermouths or anything, different cocktails, try to bring the proof down, or just as more of a base?
Honestly, we typically do the low ABV in the summer and spring. We just don't see as much of a demand for it in the fall and winter. So what we do for fall and winter is we create our entire menu, and then we take all the flavors from the drinks there and create non-alcoholic drinks with them. Mm-hmm. So we play with a lot of shrubs, you get a lot of spices. Technically, you could add an alcohol content to it. You could easily add an Amari to it to give it some alcohol, but we typically go for 0 alc in the fall and winter.
It's all or nothing. That's what it is.
Yeah.
One of my favorite like sherry-based one is definitely like an Adondis. I love one of those. Just like sherry, sweet vermouth, do a little Amontillado with it because I feel like the phenol's too funky, but like it would be like a little bit less. But that's just my love of different sherry stuff. That's definitely a speed rack cocktail as well. But of what's good here. So Austin, what's good here? I'm not trying to get super fucked up, but like I want to drink. What should I drink? But not too sweet.
Not too sweet? Ooh, you should absolutely order a bamboo. I will make those to go all day. If someone orders one of those, I will go a million miles to make sure that happens.
Can you tell the viewers that may not know what is in a bamboo?
Ooh, so a bamboo is a fortified wine-based cocktail. It's equal parts dry vermouth and usually a Fino sherry, though I'm very partial to using an Amontillado. Then a dash of Ango or some other cinnamon aromatic and orange bitters. And it's very vegetal and it has a slight bit of funk to it. It's very cool and it just goes down very easily and it doesn't get you all pickled. Ooh,
nice. Isaac, for you, what's good here?
I'm the other thing I'm working on that I'm super pumped about is a Michelada. So I've got a keg of glazed Pilsner coming, and I was thinking probably I mean, I love Cholula. So probably some Cholula, little fresh lemon juice, some salt, maybe some ground pepper and some other spices in there until it gets quite right. So I probably would sell that in like a 16-ounce to-go cup. I've got branded tape coming, so I can tape it shut so it's sealed, with a little like 50 milliliter bottle of the mixer on the side.
Hot topic question: is there MSG in your michelada mix?
No, not yet. I mean, I love MSG. I'm not opposed to MSG. Maybe I'll do a little lick on the side, a little rim.
Yeah, just like a little like tabber thing.
Yeah, like a little LSD tab of MSG.
It does. That's how I start my morning stuff. All right, Ryan, what's good here? It's my first time here.
For low ABV, I got to go back to the brunch cocktail that we're calling the Italian sangria. It's kind of the highball sangria hybrid. Other than that, Fortunate Son. I like my whiskey, so it's bourbon, some honey simple, some charred thyme, house-made lemon curd, and some saline.
Oof, I love some lemon curd.
Oh, it's wonderful.
That sounds so good.
It's summer in a glass.
All right, Hayley, what's good here?
Oh, Liz, it seems like maybe you need a low ABV cocktail at Hunt this time. And so I'm going to recommend the White Noise, which is Kochi, the classic St. Elder, topped with some soda and a grapefruit peel that we actually have on tap, and we force carbonate ourselves. Delicious.
I have definitely had that a couple of times to go. All right, well, thank you so much for joining us today on our panelist. Again, this was topic of low ABV via the day shift from the Save Our Shifts campaign. If you are interested in being a part of this or doing a night shift, I believe we have one more last round of night shifts. Applications are due Saturday. If you want to do one of those awesome videos that you've seen, and the website is www.saveourshifts.org.com. I'm a terrible host, I guess. And then our sponsors are the St. Elder. So they have their new blood orange one out and a pamplemousse grapefruit. If you haven't had it before, an OG. And then, of course, Hard Shore Distillery. So thanks so much for joining us, y'all. And we'll see you again on Thursday for our next edition of The Day Shift.